Hi everyone, welcome to this online talk with V&A Dundee. My name is Nicole and I am the creative programmer here. Before I welcome our speaker Stephanie Wood on, I wanted to draw your attention to some of the accessibility features on tonight's talk. The event is being live closed captioned and also interpreted into BSL. Detailed instructions on how to access those features have been posted in the chat. I and everyone else encourages you to ask questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of the screen. This allows us to collate the questions so that we can address them all at the end in the Q&A. You're also welcome to pop them in there at the end during the live Q&A. If you have any questions about how to access the accessibility features, just pop them in the chat and someone will try and answer them for you. And that's kind of it from me. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Steph on and she will start the talk.
Thanks, Nicole. And thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to attempt in my tech not so savvy way to share screen. Hold on. There we go. Hopefully you can all see that. So yeah, I'm going to be giving a presentation which will be roughly 40 to 45 minutes, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. Apologies in advance, I have a new very cute cat called Pebbles. If he escapes the other room and comes in here and comes across the screen, then apologies. I'm working from my living room. So hopefully some of you have had an opportunity to come to the exhibition either in London or now it's open in V&A Dundee, or maybe you're joining us from the other side of the world. But hopefully, regardless of where you come from, you have some sense of the importance of Mary Quant. She is one of the most important designers of the 20th century. She revolutionized the way that women dress, and she's known predominantly for popularizing the miniskirt. Her brand made British street style and the Chelsea girl London look a real global phenomenon. But today we're going to focus specifically on her cosmetics range and how she applied her very irreverent, subversive approach to fashion into cosmetics. One thing I would like to say is, in terms of researching this the exhibition and also this talk, I've been predominantly looking at representation of Mary Quant cosmetics in contemporary magazines from the time. So Petticoat magazine, Nova, the glossies, so Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, as well as archival footage of Mary Quant herself talking about her approach to cosmetics and also her autobiography. And there's some really great, if you look on YouTube, there's some really great stuff on there of her talking about her cosmetics line. And also it's based on testimonials and interviews of Mary Quant cosmetics consultants and employees. If you're interested in any more information about cosmetics or Mary Quant in general, there's an entire chapter in the exhibition catalogue by my amazing colleague Beatrice Balin from the Museum of London. It was back in March 1966 when Quant launched the range of cosmetics and perfumes, which really enabled customers from around the world to buy into the Mary Quant brand at very affordable prices. They were manufactured by a company called Gala Cosmetics out of their factory in Kingston, just outside of London, who some of you may be familiar with other brands that they promoted. So it's specifically promoting youth brands like Miners Cosmetics and also Outdoor Girl for the youth market. And it very much captured Quant's brand, a very playful, cheeky attitude to life. They had really fun products like Come Clean Cleanser, Get Fresh Toner, Starker's Foundation, to name but a few. And with Mary, it was very much about the total look. She created a lifestyle brand where literally everything from head to toe was available to be purchased. The image that you can see on the right-hand side here is taken in Buckingham Palace in November 1966 when Mary Quant received her OBE from the Queen. And this was just 7 months after the cosmetics brand was launched. And she's literally a walking advertisement for Mary Quant cosmetics. She's wearing a Mary Quant Kangol beret, a Mary Quant jersey mini dress, Mary Quant shoes, and also Mary Quant cosmetics and tights. And really for her move into the cosmetics industry was key to her ideas and aims of reaching a younger new audience who might not be able to afford to buy a dress, which was still very expensive. Even her Ginger Group line was somewhere between 100 and 200 pounds, but could maybe afford with their pocket money to buy a lipstick or an eyeshadow. And it was very much fundamental to Quant's ethos in making designer style accessible and affordable to everybody. So through this talk, we're going to do a quick run through of the following topics. So evolving beauty ideals and the specific look that Mary Quant promoted, the marketing of the cosmetics brand, branding and packaging, design innovations in the products that she produced, point of sale of the cosmetics, so where they were available, who sold them, and finally the global expansion of the cosmetics brand from the 1960s all the way through the 70s up to the present day. I had originally included some videos, but I was really concerned that it might crash the whole system. So I would encourage you to go on YouTube. There's some really great videos on there, as I mentioned, of Mary Quant. And there's one from 1968 where she talks about her decision to move into the cosmetics industry and why she did it. And she says, I got involved with the makeup bit because now that the clothes were different, the face was wrong. It was still very artificial, hard makeup and hair dressed up like a wedding cake on top of the head. So what she's saying here is fashion had dramatically changed, but makeup had been left behind. In another interview, she said it was stuck back in wartime ideas. And this applied not only to the kind of products that that were available, but also to the colors that were available, the packaging, the advertising, and the way that cosmetics were sold. Now, in order to understand that kind of shift and the importance of Quant's revolution in style, it's really important to look at beauty ideals and how they were changing during this time. And I think a really great way of looking at how beauty ideals change within a society or within a country is to look at the models who were chosen to represent as the kind of face of that era. These three images are all from the 1950s, and they're all taken by the photographer John French, owned by the V&A collection. And these are the kind of leading supermodels of the 1950s. The image that you see on the left is all of the top models from 1952, and the lady who's seated on the image on the left and the far image on the right is Barbara Golan. And she was one of the most successful British models from 1945 all the way up to 1954. And she's the perfect example of post-war elegance. So very mature, sophisticated looking lady. You can see on the right, very arched eyebrows, quite severe makeup, dark lipstick, dark, heavy eye makeup, and often chignoned or set hair. This was the predominant look of the 1950s. If we fast forward 10 years, so again, these are John French images, and the image on the left is from major models from 1962. And all of these models are wearing Mary Quant dresses. So you can see hair is still quite overly styled, it's quite stiff, there's a lot of volume here. Again, very heavy eye makeup, darker shades of lipstick. But if we look at the image on the right, this is just 3 years later. And all of the key models from 1965, again by John French, and it's a lot more relaxed. The hair is a lot more relaxed, it's worn down rather than set or styled. It's very pale lipstick with very big eyes, and overall it's a much more kind of pared back and youthful look. Also, if we look at this article, so this is from Vogue, September 1966, and it features 3 of the major London-based British models, all of whom regularly worked with Mary Quant from 66. We've got Celia Hammond on the left, one of the biggest models of the early 1960s, Jean Shrimpton, who was one of Mary's favourite models, and on the right we've got Jill Kennington. And the whole idea with this article is on the left-hand side of the image, this is their natural look when they're not working, and on the right, this is the makeup that they put on themselves when they are on set for photography and for photo shoots. And you can see compared with this and even this image on the left-hand side, it's a much more relaxed look, particularly when it comes to Jean Shrimpton. It was very much the girl next door kind of look. And this was the same look that was promoted by Mary Quant herself and the models that she worked with, and would go on to be spread around the world as the British or the London look. All of these images that you see here are from 1966, the same year that the cosmetics brand was launched. And it's very much about barely there, very natural looking foundation. Again, very pale lipstick with a real emphasis on the eyes, highlighting the eyelids. And then there's a very, very dark shaded thick line that goes around the edge of the eye sockets. And you can also see on the middle image here that Mary's drawn on her own freckles onto her face, which looks very cute. And on the right, we've got Twiggy here, who, this is from 1966, so this is the same year that Twiggy exploded onto the fashion scene and became, she was really young, she was only 16 years old, and she became the face of 1966 and one of the most iconic British models during that time. And she also became known as the face of Mary Quant. One of my favourite things that came out of this period that was popularised by Mary Quant and by Twiggy is this very thick, drawn-on eyelashes on the lower lid, so very doll-like eye makeup. A fundamental part of the new London look, and specifically the Mary Quant look, was the Vidal Sassoon haircut, which were very sleek, very clean cut and modern to mirror the streamlined modern garments that Mary Quant herself was producing. She herself was very good friends with Vidal Sassoon. She worked with him very closely, and she had her haircut with him from 1963 onwards, as did many of her models who she worked with regularly. When I read her autobiography, there was a really interesting section that said that when they went to promote the brand in America, that many of the people who, the fans who turned up at the airport were asking the models, they literally turned up with scissors and were asking the models and Mary Quant to come and cut their hair in the Vidal Sassoon style, which I find hilarious because hairstyles in London were a kind of whole step ahead of the kind of styles that you would have seen, like the ones here left, promoted by the American models at the time. And Mary worked closely with Vidal Sassoon for many, many years. She very much preferred a kind of cohesive, uniform look for her models, both in fashion shows and when she was promoting Mary Quant products. And you can see the images on the middle and the right here. This is Jill Kennington. And the image in the middle is her with her kind of natural straight cut blonde hair, which is kind of well below shoulder length, and is very, very different from the kind of bobbed Vidal Sassoon hairstyle that Mary liked to promote. So much so that whenever Jill Kennington worked with Mary Quant on the fashion shows, and also when she was used to promote products like this knitting pattern on the right-hand side for Mary Quant, Mary sent her off and she had a Vidal Sassoon bobbed wig commissioned for her that she would have to wear whenever she was doing the fashion shows. So it was this completely cohesive look where all the models had bobbed Vidal Sassoon haircuts. One of the key things that I find fascinating when researching Mary Quant cosmetics was the marketing around it, which was very, very kind of ahead of its time, very clever. Mary Quant was in the unique position that she personally knew and already worked with some of the major models of the 1960s. And the image that you're looking at here, so this is the invitation to the Quant Cosmetics launch in 1966, which was sent to journalists and buyers as jigsaw pieces. And it features on it an image of the top 22 models from 1966, all wearing Mary Quant dresses with the words, "Makeup ideas all mixed up. The result, Mary Quant makeup cut out for a big new swinging market." And then on the final kind of day after those final pieces had been sent to journalists, the very last piece, top right, with all of the details of where the champagne launch party was sent out as well, which I think is, even today, I would find that a really clever kind of engaging way to promote a brand. But the thing that I also find interesting about it is that she has these personal connections already from having an established fashion brand that she can use to promote her cosmetics brand, almost as if like contemporary endorsements today from models. In order to get a sense of how fresh the approach of the marketing campaign is, it's important to look back at what other major cosmetics and particularly American brands were doing in the 1960s. So I've got 2 slides here looking at the Hollywood look and the Hollywood approach. The images that you can see, the one on the left-hand side is Charles of the Ritz from 1962. In the middle, it's Colors Americana by Q-Tex. And on the right, we've got Colors Unlimited by Revlon. And I think the thing that you get a real sense of when looking at these is that there's a very considered colour palette. The eyeshadow is predominantly blue. The lipstick is predominantly pink or red. And also the kind of hairstyles are relatively styled, chignoned, set hair, and it looks relatively dated. Moving forward again, we've got Avon 1962 on the left-hand side, CoverGirl from 1964 in the middle, and 1965 Max Factor look. And you can see there's a theme here. There's a lot of pastels and a lot of pink being represented. And also the color of the cosmetics themselves. There's corals, there's reds, there's pinks, but there's not a lot else. In contrast, if we have a look at what Mary was promoting, and the marketing around the Mary Quant cosmetics brand, it's very, very different from this and very different from this. It's very clean, it's very minimal, it's almost kind of satirical and self-aware in its tone. One of my favorites is the image that you see in the middle here, Barefaced Liar, to promote the Starkers foundation. Which, to be honest, looks relatively contemporary in the kind of makeup style and also in the branding itself. And on the right, you've got an advert for Blush Baby, available in 5 saucy colours, with the tagline, Mary, we like your cheek. So it's very far removed from the other major companies who were promoting cosmetics at that time. Also, if we look at the branding and the packaging, it's quite different from what had gone before. So traditionally, other brands such as Revlon and Yardley, they prefer to use pastel colours for the packaging and also for the marketing. And the materials that they used were very much styled around mimicking luxury materials like gold and marble, whereas the materials that Mary preferred to use was plastic, monochromatic white or black plastic, because she very much saw that as modern, space age, and the future, and looked really different from what had gone before. Also very important is the incorporation of the very famous Daisy logo, which you can see on almost every single one of her products, on the packaging itself, and also on the left-hand side you can see an advertisement for her makeup range where it's described as Mary Quant gives you the bare essentials, which is again a playful take on the fact that the model is wearing nothing, just the Daisy logos. And the logo is a particularly important one for any kind of Mary Quant customers, because by this point she'd been running her business for 11 years by the time the cosmetics brand was launched, and the Daisy logo became really synonymous with that brand and was instantly recognizable from Quant fans. For a very long time, Mary Quant was the face of the brand. She was very clever in her and very successful in her marketing of her products, with her kind of promoting them all as we'd seen previously when she received her OBE. And she had a very clever understanding of how to promote her own products. She was also in a very good position, as I mentioned, that she'd been running this very successful international brand for a very long time, and so there was an entire generation of young women and young girls who wanted to buy into this brand, to look like Mary and to be like Mary. And the image that you see on the right hand side here, so this is an illustration called Mary's Great Idea, illustrated by Jan Parker. And there were smaller versions of these that were actually folded up and sent out with the cosmetics products, but it was also available blown up large at the point of sale. So wherever you would go and buy Mary Quant cosmetics, in department stores or in boutiques, these were available. It was a very, very clever marketing tool. You've got a really cute little drawing of what looks like Mary Quant, and it's basically showing you how to get the Mary Quant look from the basics of the foundation, how to create the eyes, how to create the lips, to create the whole look. And again, when I spoke to one of her Mary Quant consultants, Joy Devon and Burton, she said that it was a really successful way of selling consecutively more products each time. So say a girl would come in and she would buy the lipstick, and then she would see this and she would want to come back and buy more each week. So it was, again, really good at marketing, and a good way of kind of bringing back the customers. One of the first products that she produced was Starkers. It was from the first range in 1966, and it's literally the base, the foundation of the entire look. She's promoting this idea of barely there cosmetics, which mirrored the look that most women in the 1960s, young ones, were aspiring to be like. You can see the packaging for Starkers on the left-hand side, and the advert with Penelope Tree, second from left. Another big part of the products being promoted in the first selection was face shapers that you can see in the middle bottom here, which effectively follows the principle of shading and highlighting to enhance features. Now, if any of you thought that contouring was a very contemporary thing that only the Kardashians really excel in, you'd be wrong. You can see on the right hand side, these are some of the, we've got Marlene Dietrich and a number of people within the theatre, models and actresses like Marilyn Monroe, who used these techniques, particularly on black and white film, to shade and shadow certain aspects, like cheekbones and jawbones and things like this. But according to Joy Devon and Burton, the Quant Cosmetics consultant, it wasn't until Mary began creating face shapers that this was available on the high street. It was something that was done predominantly by people who worked within the theatre or were models or actresses. There's a whole range of products that were produced throughout the 1960s and into the 70s by Mary Quant. Here's some of my favourites. We've got on the left-hand side Cry Baby from 1967 for waterproof mascara. In the middle, we've got Jeepers Peepers. So that was a series of eyeliners and eye powders called Jeepers Peepers, with the slightly risque title, Mary Quant will give you a lovely pair of shiners, which I'm not sure would fly today in terms of marketing, but was quite controversial and tongue-in-cheek. And then one of my favourite, there's lots and lots of eyelashes to get the full 1960s full lash look. And my favourite is this one bottom right called Loads of Lash, which is really clever and quite playful. It's her most well-known cosmetics product for eyes. It was 8 inches, so 20.3 centimeters strip of real hair lashes that cut to any length and stuck on. And there's some really great, if you go on YouTube, there's some really great videos of those being kind of cut and stuck on models, which are quite fun. And then there was also a whole range of nail polish colours that she promoted. So up until that stage, she said in an interview, nobody had considered a colour other than red, pink or vaguely orange for lipstick, or that there was any colour other than blue, green and possibly purple for eyeshadow. So there was no flexibility and no fun with makeup. And the same goes for nail polish colours. There was a very limited range of nail polish colours up until 1966 at this point. And as I mentioned, Mary was very much about promoting the total look. And although she said again and again that she didn't have particularly favourite colours, actually having studied thousands of her pieces, either in person or virtually, these are the specific colours that she promoted for her garments throughout her career. They come up again and again and again. So prune, plum, ginger, mustard, and putty, which is a kind of very specific shade of beige. And these are the colours that she was also promoting and pushing manufacturers to produce in nail polish colours. So you could also wear your nail polish matching your outfit, your Mary Quant outfit. She also moved into the perfume market. She travelled to Grasse, so the home of traditional French perfume, to realise her vision of a scent for the modern woman. But she had lots of ideas of what she wanted from a perfume, and I think they found it quite difficult to produce one. So in the end, they produced 2. But it was very clever in its marketing. Again, it was two options. So the AM perfume for in the daytime and the PM perfume for at nighttime. And she said to the manufacturers that she wanted her fragrance to be open and confident like men's scents, but also female, sexy, daring, and complex. I'm not surprised that they struggled to find one perfume to do all of those things. And then the image on the right here is an advertisement for her perfume Havoc, which she released in 1974. Again, with the tagline, "A perfume and cologne for girls who like to play it," as in play havoc. This is one of my favorite products that was produced. She, in 1966, October 1966, she introduced her first Paintbox. So this is a makeup kit, and it's a very efficient means of presenting all products in one container. You can see on the left-hand side some of the things it contains. So it's a white plastic box with a very large mirror inside, and the lid, inside the lid, then you've got 3 eyeshadows and eye shapers, 1 black cake liner, which having spoken to a number of women who use this, they said they actually sometimes had to spit on the brush to get this block mascara to work. It also included 2 brush lipsticks, 2 brushes for eyes, and a broader chisel for lips. And again, all convenient, all in one place, making women's lives easier and more streamlined so they can have more fun and spend less time putting on the makeup and getting ready. And this was also very playful. The idea of it being a paint box very much plays on the idea of artistic materials. She said herself that she used artistic materials to do her own makeup. So paint brushes, watercolor paint boxes, and crayons in doing her own makeup. And again, there was a number of different things that she produced as well as paint box, which played on this idea of artist tools. So coloring boxes was another set that she produced, cosmetic crayon sets, and this paint box. Again, if you go onto YouTube, there's a really great video that shows you the production of the paint box, and it's Mary talking about all of the different things and the reasons why she chose to have everything all in one place. Another thing that made it really really successful in promoting the Mary Quant range of cosmetics was that around the same time that she was launching the cosmetics brand, there was also a whole new wave of new magazines that were aimed at the younger British audience. So you have, as well as the glossy magazines like Harper's Bazaar and Vogue, you also have, coming in 1966, Petticoat, Nova magazine, and Honey. And the image that you can see here is an entire supplement from 1967 called On the Quant Wavelength, which came out alongside a Honey magazine. And this entire supplement is effectively promoting Mary Quant cosmetics, and it also had makeovers of young girls who worked for Honey magazine at that time and various people who wrote in. And this shows you the power of Mary Quant as a kind of brand ambassador, and the fact that there was an entire supplement in this brand new magazine promoting her products and talking about her as kind of an amazing face of the brand that you would want to look like. You would want her advice on how to look. One of the other things that kind of set Mary Quant Cosmetics apart from other cosmetics brands was the point of sale. So it wasn't just the products themselves, it wasn't just the marketing, it was who sold them to you. So the main place that you would buy these Mary Quant cosmetics was in department stores, just as you can today. And she had an entire team of Mary Quant Cosmetics consultants who would sell them. When I spoke to Joy Debenham Burton, who is the lady you can see in the image on the left here with Mary Quant, and also the lady on the right of the middle image, so she headed up a team of 6 Quant Cosmetics consultants who travelled all around the UK to various different department stores, training up young Quant Cosmetics consultants to sell them. And the whole approach was very, very different from existing cosmetics consultants who, according to Joy, she described them as like dragon-like women who were quite scary and unapproachable. And the whole approach with the Mary Quant cosmetics consultants was that they were young, they were friendly, and they were often not much older than the Quant customers who were coming in to buy the products themselves. So there was a real affinity there, and it made it a lot easier, and ultimately helped in kind of spreading the success of the brand. This fresh approach really gained them an international success very quickly. And there were agents selling Mary Quant cosmetics all over the world, in New York, in Paris, Milan, Copenhagen, Helsinki, Brazil, the Middle East, Germany. And I saw a reference to cosmetics being sold in Africa recently, which I need to do more research on. And the images you can see here is an advertisement for Quant Cosmetics in French. The middle is an image of a pop-up in Galerie Lafayette in Paris, where you could buy the cosmetics. And the images on the right, the three in a row here, these are from the launch in October 1973 in Penang, Malaysia. So it really is a kind of world-renowned success story. It was so successful that by 1973, cosmetics were being sold in over 104 countries worldwide. And one of the most successful countries for selling the cosmetics was Japan, where the minimal style and the very British heritage branding around Mary Quant cosmetics worked really well with their customer base. The image that you can see here is advertising a product called Top in the Sun care range in Japanese, which was sold in 1971 in various department stores in Japan, again illustrated by Jan Parker. One of the things I found most interesting when researching this subject was, and the most spectacular means of driving sales internationally, was the Mary Quant beauty bus, which was originally a bright red, as you see on the left here, and then subsequently bright yellow London Routemaster bus, which was fitted out with tables, mirrors, and swivel stools to offer makeovers. And the idea was that they would park up anywhere where the cosmetics were being sold internationally in department stores and boutiques, and they would offer tutorials in how to get the Mary Quant makeup look. The images that you can see on the right here and bottom right, this is the driver, Quincy Connell, who drove the Mary Quant beauty bus throughout the late 60s into the early 70s, all through North America, South America, and throughout Europe, until sadly the bus exploded and was decommissioned in Venezuela. But it was a really successful marketing tool and very clever in promoting the brand internationally. The image on the right here is again the beauty bus from 1971. We got so excited when we were initially promoting and launching the exhibition in London in last year in 2019 that we stole the idea, and we had a V&A Mary Quant beauty bus, which drove a series of dancers and all of our models, our original Mary Quant models, around London promoting the exhibition launch. And it's also been a real source of inspiration for the young designers Rixo, who are featured in an interview in the Dundee exhibition, and they've produced their own, as of last year, Rixo beauty bus inspired by the original Mary Quant one, which has been driving around and promoting their work. And also I think it's parked up in Covent Garden, or was up until last month, so maybe you can go and visit. If we look at throughout the 60s and into the 70s, the brand expanded immensely. There were hundreds of products that were produced throughout this period. They were continually added to the cosmetics range with tongue-in-cheek names like Skin Think for skincare range, also vitamin pills. I'm not sure that would be allowed today, but really fun names like breathalyzers, breath fresheners, Tan Trap, which was a tanning product. In 1971, one of my favourite ranges, Makeup to Make Love In. And in 1973, she produced one of her most successful and famous products from the cosmetics range, Quant crayons, which were available in 20 colours. And like the artist crayons, they were sold in a bright yellow box, which you can see on the right-hand side here, with a black daisy on it. And Quant herself declared that this was the best idea that she ever had. I actually have, hopefully you can see this. Maybe I'll try and stop sharing and then share again. Let's see if this works. I've got one of the original products here for you to see. Important to say that this is not an object. This is part of our handling collection. And if you look on the inside, let's see, it's not a full range, but you can see these are some of the amazing shades that you could draw all over your face. And I haven't gotten to the bottom of who produced them, but there's a very similar range that have been brought out within the last couple of years. And again, we've got the Mary Quant pearly crayons in slightly more muted pearlescent tones. Let's see if I can share again. This, I have to say, is probably my favourite of all of the cosmetics that she produced. It's from 1974. It's her colouring box for men, which was produced in the era of glam rock when male pop stars like David Bowie, seen on the Aladdin Sane cover here, 1973, regularly wore makeup. But I have to say, probably wasn't picked up more broadly within culture. But she produced this range in 1974, and it was a whole range of cosmetics, moisturizers, and tanning products for men. But it met with quite a lot of outrage, and it also generated a huge amount of publicity. Apparently, I was reading that the lead singer, Holly Johnson of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, he had Mary Quant cosmetics for men, which he used, and he would have to sneak out and put them on so that his family wouldn't see him wearing them because it was not acceptable. And to give you a sense of the kind of ways that this was promoted, so these are two advertisements from 1974 in American Cosmopolitan, and the tagline says, "You owe it to yourself to look as good as you can, and that means both sexes. A little black stick smudged around the eyes, a brush full or two of tearful mascara, and a man still looks like a man, only better. Only we can do it because only we have Mary." So it's kind of clear that it's still quite controversial. This isn't something that's accepted within mainstream culture, but because Mary is such a huge face of the brand, they feel confident enough to promote this, and in America as well. Moving forward into the 1970s, you can see that the range of products produced are very, very different in terms of branding than the ones she produced in the 1960s. She had a whole range that she produced from 1972 called Special Recipes, which featured Victoriana-style packaging, which is very much in keeping with the whole kind of 1970s taste for nostalgia, or promoting natural materials, and visually very different from the 1960s range. And it's important to say that this was kind of reflected in the kind of fashion for the 1970s nostalgia and looking back that Mary represented in her fashion as well as in her cosmetics. And as we move forward to the 1980s, she produced a whole range of cosmetics books advising people on how to get a Mary Quant look, and she also had an entire range of colour shops up until the 2000s, which sold cosmetics throughout the world. There was one in London near Sloane Square for many years, but it's really during this time that there's I guess from the 1970s onwards, it's important to note that as a brand, they've moved away from producing predominantly fashion. So Ginger Group, the main line that she produced, the mass-produced line, stopped trading in the mid-1970s. She'd closed all of her shops by the late 1960s and actually moved towards licensing deals and manufacturing. And it was really during this time there was an economic downturn, and it was this focus on the licensing and the cosmetics that really allowed the Mary Quant brand, unlike many other fashion brands, to survive and even thrive when many just disappeared out of fashion history. The brand still exists today. It's in Japan, and their cosmetics sell really well over there. You can see in-store department with a small range of products, and also the range of cosmetics they produce. And if you go on social media and you do hashtag Mary Quant, you'll find lots and lots of images of young Japanese customers like this promoting the brand today. The thing I find interesting about it is that the packaging, which was so bold back in the 1960s, is almost identical today. It's really not changed very much. You've still got the very, very bold Daisy logo. You've still got very similar fonts. And it just is testament to how fresh that design approach was back in 1966. So to conclude, because I'm mindful we need to leave some time for questions, the cosmetics line, Mary Quant, transformed the kind of products and the range of colours that was available for women, and from 1907 also available for men with her colouring box for men, with bold minimal packaging, clever direct advertising that still feels really fresh today and was revolutionary compared with other cosmetics brands at that time. The London look, promoted by models and by Quant herself, became a real global phenomenon, popular with anyone who was keen to tap into that cultural cachet of the Mary Quant brand. And really, I think for me, the thing that I find most interesting is that this was the thing that survived longer than anything else and is still surviving today. And yeah, has really allowed the brand to survive and is still hugely successful. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining.